I'd like to call the Wednesday, May 19th Planning Commission hearing to order. Heather, if you'd call the roll.
Mr. Charlie?
Here.
Mr. Klee?
Here.
Mr. Boswell?
Here.
Ms. Macbeth?
Here.
Mr. Schaller?
Here.
Mr. Granger?
Here.
Mr. Sokolowski?
Here.
Great. Well, thank you all for being here. Welcome back to a live meeting that's not a bunch of Zoom boxes. Our first order of business is the approval of 3 sets of minutes from April, our regular meeting, then our continuation on that same day of a joint meeting with EDA, and 2 weeks later, our comp plan work session. Are there any changes that people want to bring to the minutes? Motion to approve them as submitted?
I move that we approve the minutes as submitted.
Second.
Heather, please.
Mr. Charlie?
Except I abstain from the minutes on A and B on the agenda because I didn't attend those meetings.
Mr. Klee?
Aye, although I also abstain from the April 14th minutes.
Mr. Boswell?
Aye.
Ms. Macbeth?
Aye.
Mr. Schaller?
Aye.
Mr. Granger?
Aye.
Mr. Sokolowski?
Aye.
Okay, we do not have any consent agenda items nor public hearings, but we do have an open forum opportunity. There are people here in chambers with us. If anyone would like to come forward and speak to anything that is in front of us, now is your time. Not seeing a stampede to the front, I will move forward. Again, there are no site plans or unfinished business. The main items we have today is the new business. The first item of new business is the 2021 comprehensive plan. Alan?
That's correct. So I provided everyone a final draft of the plan, so I'll briefly just go over the different chapters, and if you have some comments or changes to those, we can talk about it. As you know, we separated the first chapter goals into 2 chapters to include the preamble. So that was added to the comp plan, and then unless anyone has any comments on that, I think that was pretty straightforward. And if you don't have anything on that, we go to chapter 1, which was goals, and the goals have been updated to include, as I mentioned, the city council's GIOs. I think we had discussed that pretty much, and that was pretty clear with the commission that that was okay, unless anyone has any additional comments you want to discuss on that. Chapter 2 is the land use categories, and those have been updated to reflect the existing land uses, and we had some discussion on those chapters with changing some of the conservation areas and parks and so forth, so all of that was updated. I would note that I added a sentence to the economic development category to address Senate Bill 1327 and House Bill 2175, which requires manufactured homes to be included in the comprehensive plan, so you can see that. I believe it's in red in that chapter. Other than that, that whole chapter is basically what the commission has seen several times previously.
This is a general comment that, when we go back one more time through, is to look at the headings to make sure they're consistent. One that I noticed on this one was on page 2.5, the high-density multifamily residential doesn't have the bullet, and it's not aligned like the other ones are. Some chapters aren't centered while others are. So just a general observation, but that's one.
If you see anything like that, if you could shoot me an email,
okay,
it would be helpful, but I'll look at it also, because I'm sure when we switch some of these over, it might have done that. But yeah, if anybody has any minor corrections or changes or alignment, if you could just shoot me an email, that would be most helpful and appreciated. So 2-5, you said?
yeah, the high density up there in the doesn't have the bullet.
Okay.
And staying in chapter 2, since this is one of the few new red things since we've met 30-something times according to the agenda on this, this is part of changes that are coming down to us from the General Assembly, so this is where it fits internal to our document, and so it would be in one of these planned master plan areas that would allow
That's
this?
correct. Staff is recommending that we put that into the ED district, and we're recommending not rezoning anything.
Right.
And just putting it as a use that has the potential, depending on whatever master plan's been submitted, into that district. So this is very general in nature for that very reason.
Yeah, perfect.
And the ED districts in the city is High Street. As far as the land use plan is, it's High Street, what everyone calls Riverside, Quarter Path, a piece of property the city owns on Strawberry Plains Road. Also, the piece of property that William and Mary owns on Ironbound Road is ED district. I think those are the ED districts we have in the city. So those are the districts we think that may have the potential for that use if a high-quality development is submitted.
Sure,
We
yeah.
get to look at that as part of that.
Yeah, perfect. Great, thank you.
Anything else in that chapter? Next one is population, and basically those were all updated based on the census, the community survey, and HRPDC commission. So that's the same chapter we've seen for quite some time. No additional changes in there. There are no comments on that. The community character chapter, I did add different pictures. Jeff, I think that was a comment the last time we saw that, to put some additional pictures into the chapter. And I think I've added a lot more pictures
Yeah, these are
with
great.
different houses and buildings into that chapter is the main change that was done to that chapter since you last saw it. And that's basically, you know, our preservation districts in there, archaeological protection districts in there, entrance corridors, all those things are in there, but that's basically the same chapter with updates on pictures.
Let me ask a question, if I may, and it's somewhat odd. Back on 3.1 with population, there are pictures where we see people and they're recognizable. Is that an issue? Because they're recognizable people, do we need a disclaimer or anything like that? No? Okay. Most of it's buildings, and so I wasn't worried about that, but people I wondered about. So, sorry to go back.
No, thank you.
So that's all the changes that were made to the community character chapter. Anything else? Next is our neighborhood chapter, and that's where we updated the percentages in our neighborhoods. We did the maps. It contains all of our main planning areas, like the downtown planning area, the northeast triangle, the midtown. Very few changes to that chapter were made since you last saw it, maybe some updating pictures and updating mapping. Also, I will mention that if you go onto the website, when you click on these chapters and it says click here, it takes you to those documents now. So that's live on the website. Of course, you can't do it in a book, but they are live. And we also have on the website, under the comprehensive plan, supporting documents section. So we're putting in supporting documents in there. If you could take a look at that, if there's a map or something that you think would be helpful to put in that area so that you can enlarge it and make it bigger, just shoot me an email on that. We'll be happy to include those. Some of those that we plan on putting in there, and the reason I mention that in here is like the downtown planning area, those maps, we plan on putting those in there so that you could just click on those and just make them larger for everyone to look at, to see it a little bit better. And as I noted in my memo, the recommended change in this area was for the from office use to low-density, single-family detached residential for the 530 Mill Neck Road property that we talked about. So that's why I mentioned it in here. They're basically two changes to the actual comprehensive plan map that we're looking at, and that's one of them. The next chapter is 6, which is housing, and there were no, basically, most of it is Dr. Stafford's report and some staff information at the very back of that, and the link is also in there online that you can click on her report and takes you to it.
I didn't catch that. I saw it in the back, this affordable housing comment, and I just, because it's in implementation, that's where I went back to the front.
Okay.
So,
Can you tell us what page you're referencing, so we can all
well,
catch
it is
up?
638,
Okay.
the recommendations. And it's also when
The implementation?
15.2.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't encompass, and this is just something I'm throwing out for discussion, I know we've been through this, but it only talks about buyers, but I think, especially with the market that we have, that affordable rent is an issue too, and I wrote up something just for discussion: study and evaluate affordable housing options for people who want to live and work in the city. It's a broader type of thing. I didn't know what anybody thought about that.
Would that be an additional bullet or?
In place of that bullet, because then that would study and evaluate affordable housing
Oh,
options.
I see what you're saying. Yes.
Yeah, because they're talking about first-time buyers. It may not even be a first-time buyer. I mean, that's a limiting thing there. And it's not only buyers, it's people who want to rent.
Sure. I'm certainly open to that unless we feel there's a need to specifically call out
Yeah.
first-time buyers, and I don't see a need to do that.
I think we don't want to lose the reference to the accessory building units, because that's a discrete issue, so.
Okay.
I mean,
I didn't
I'm open to the
understand that.
friendly amendment, but somehow I don't think we want to lose that aspect.
Yeah, that
Sort of an
makes sense.
infill development aspect for
Yeah.
places. So maybe you could send Carolyn that bullet,
Yeah.
and we can
Yep.
blend the two, or have a
Right.
separate bullet or something like
What
that.
you can do, if you could send that to me,
Yeah.
what I'll do is add it where I think it's appropriate and just shoot an email out to the commission members before we publish it next month and see if that wording's okay with you, and
Sounds good.
happy to do that. Is that it for Chapter 6, Housing? Chapter 7 is the Economy chapter. So we updated that. Basically, it's the same chapter. I don't think I made any changes to that, and that was done with the Hampton Roads Planning District Commission, the Economic Analysis, the Tourism Council, the Community Survey, and Weldon Cooper, so that's where a lot of that information came from. Chapter 8 is the commercial and economic development. So this section was updated with information and mapping for all the planning areas, the vibrancy study, and our meetings with EDA. No comments in there? So Chapter 9, it's institutions. So basically, this chapter contains the William and Mary and the Colonial Williamsburg Foundation. One change that I did make into the chapter that it is correct online is Mr. Boswell mentioned that one of the buildings on campus had changed.
Oh, Tyler is now Chancellor's, yes.
So I have made those changes.
Okay.
You said which Tyler is now?
Chancellors, like Chancellor Gates, that name.
The one that I suggested was Morton to Boswell.
Yep.
Yeah,
I
I
forgot
saw
about-
that in the paper. I'm like, did you have a hand in that?
And I forget, kind of.
So I made the Boswell one, so I will make sure I make the Tyler one. Anything else, if you guys would just shoot me an email with that, and I can update anything as far as that's concerned. But basically, that chapter is the same. As mentioned in my memo, this chapter also recommends changing the comprehensive plan designation for 7219 Pocahontas Trail, which was used to be owned by the Colonial Williamsburg Foundation and was sold. So we're recommended to change that from Colonial Williamsburg support to the conservation areas, because that's the Battlefield Trust property. And to rezone it from MS to Single Family Dwelling District RS1, which is the same as what we have other conservation areas in the city. Alrighty, Chapter 10 is public schools and libraries, and basically no change to that other than we were updated, as you saw at our work session, we updated the library information, so I think all the changes we had from our work session were added to that chapter. Chapter 11, Parks and Recreation. There's also the link that would take you to the parks study.
Carolyn, I had some observations, and it's mainly relating to verbiage. This is the only chapter we use these verbs. Under Goal 1, we say explore, pursue. I don't know what that means.
Which one are you,
Under Goal 1, explore, improving, adding bike lanes. Pursue, connecting to the Capitol Trail. It's the only chapter that we say those things, as opposed to study, implement, upgrade. And so I guess, one, I don't know what those terms, they don't seem to have any meaning. And do we want to put something there that is more directive?
Those verbs came from the study, didn't they?
Right.
I mean, we kind of adopted the study into this, and I think they were
Okay.
using, yeah, I think that's where the consistency broke down. But I like the idea of being consistent, using our verbs instead of their verbs.
Yeah, I mean, because we have, even in this particular one, review joint use agreements and how it benefits, improve departmental marketing, enhance and improve external communication. In that particular goal, all of these seem soft and explore, so I don't know, is it, do we study the feasibility of adding splash poles?
So I would say, I agree with you. I see the disconnect there. On our own, on the next page with our own recommendations, other than the last one, we don't use any of the words that you were concerned with. And I wonder if maybe the solution to this is, rather than trying to go in and change the study's goals, right, even though we could take sort of issue with some of their verbiage, if we just reiterate, and I mean, it is the paragraph above, but I don't know if there's a different way to highlight that these are goals we might share the general ideas of, but they come from the parks plan.
I agree, because the Pursue an African American Heritage Trail is another one that I saw under recommendations, and I don't know what that entails.
Hey, I think a single line at the end of that paragraph may be broken out that simply says, the goals as articulated in the 2019 Parks and Rec Master Plan are as follows, : and then the next page, we're paraphrasing and quoting. And then the recommendations do have that more direct language that we've adopted in the other chapters.
But there's value in having it on the same page, I think, if people are looking at it rather, because it's easy just to look at this as a page and miss that language. So I don't know about spacing or how it's going to show up online, but it would be nice if it was connected enough that.
Have to drop the font from 12 to 11.75.
I get you, Jeff, to maybe send me a
Sure.
email with the wording you're proposing?
Yeah, be happy to.
Yeah. Alrighty. Is that it for Chapter 11? Chapter 12 is transportation, so basically that's the same as we saw previously. And that also has a link to the study that was done by the Planning District Commission. Click on the link. So Chapter 13 is infrastructure, and that's basically the utility section, which includes your water, sanitary sewer, solid waste, communications, solar, electric car charging, and connected and automated vehicles. So that's basically the same chapter also. I don't think we had any additions at our work session last month on that chapter. And 14 is the environmental management. I did post the sea level rise map already on the website if you go into supported documents. And it also, you can click on it, so it's in 2 spots on the website, because then you can see that map a lot better than in a book form as you see it here. But other than that, I think this chapter is also the same that we saw last month. And the final chapter is implementation, and I think the commission wanted to look at that a little more from our work session meeting, because that was basically the first time you saw it, so. And I did include a comp plan map in the back, and basically the comp plan map, the only 2 changes on the map were the 2 that I mentioned previously. The one for the CW property, that's the battlefield, and the one on Mill Neck Road, that are the 2 comp plan actual map changes.
Yeah, the only comment I would make are the suggestions that I made earlier are all in this chapter too.
Okay.
So they would have to be consistent if we change anything.
Right. So other than that, that's, what, 3 years' worth of work for the commission?
And you. Yeah. So I appreciate all the work they've put into this, Carol, and I also appreciate everyone's close reviews of these different chapters as we've seen them over and over again, and inclusive of now when they look totally perfect and then we still find something.
So do you like the way it actually looks in a document when you see it?
Yeah, that
Yeah.
looks great.
I think I like it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's,
It's very
we
friendly.
used nicer paper, heavier paper, so
Yeah.
it's nice to,
Yeah, I mean, when I first opened the folder, I'm like, oh, this is intriguing, bottom to top, and then I'm like, oh, it tips over and it's perfect. You just keep on going forward. Yeah, it's
yeah, because
lovely.
I think what's nice too is we printed it, so when you flip the page, you're seeing, you don't have to sort of turn the
Right.
book or
No, no,
anything
no, I think it's
again.
great. At least I did, I thought it was great. Okay, so this will be on our agenda next month as a public hearing. So obviously that needs to be advertised and all that kind of stuff. So anything that we're talking about today, if people can get this to Carolyn this
Yeah.
week would be great. If not, Monday, next week kind of thing, just to get this forward so you can tie a ribbon around this.
Yes, if anybody had any little tweaks or things that you see or think needs changing, please get them to me. We will finalize it, advertise it. Any pages that I change, I'll also, when you get your packet, we'll deliver those inserts for those pages so that you have a complete set. I'm not going to print the whole thing over.
Oh,
but,
we would hope you wouldn't actually.
But I will print the pages over,
Okay.
and if you want a large map, I'm happy to
No,
have
no,
those
I'm good.
printed.
I didn't recognize that as what it was, so I'm
Yeah.
fine, yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else on this item? Okay, we have another item then of new business on the Planning Commission bylaws, an update to the Planning Commission bylaws. Before we all sort of closed down, it had been put forward through the General Assembly and then approved by City Council to be able to have electronic participation in accordance with came from us from the General Assembly and then with Williamsburg Code. We have not adopted that. This is different than our sort of emergency electronic format that we've been doing in the past year or so. This allows that you can call in if you need to be away but still want to participate or able to participate in a meeting. It does require that we still have a quorum here in person, but you are able to be away and phone in. With other boards and commissions that Williamsburg has, it has already approved this. I mean, some of the subcommittees, as I think of them, that I sit on, this has been approved, and we've been able to have people who were very pleasantly with their family at a beach cottage or something like that, calling in for an hour and making stuff move forward. So not that I'm encouraging anyone else to impinge upon your family vacation, but that is another part of new business for us. It is obviously a part of the Williamsburg Code and all that, so there's not a lot of discussion except to agree that we think this might be good to bring on board, and it comports with the other boards and commissions in the city.
Yeah,
So-
and basically, we talked about this at our work session. And if you look at your bylaws, the bylaws said you have to give 30 days for you to review that. So counting the work session to June now gives us plenty of time for the 30-day notice. And that's why I figured I'd just go ahead and put it on the agenda.
Yeah.
And we can decide
Perfect.
whether we think that's a good thing or not to push forward for next month. And if it is, I'll just add it to the agenda and we can.
And, yeah, and I think that we already talked about this, as you said, at a work session to bring it forward. So this is the formal path of bringing it forward. Given that it is this, perfunct issue of just our accepting it amongst the list of boards and commissions of the city, is this something that requires a public hearing or could be on our consent agenda, given that we have this comp plan that will be a public hearing next month?
No, I think the bylaws changes just with the commission, right? Yeah.
Oh, oh, good. That's perfect. I just didn't
Yeah, I
want to
think
sort of
it's
build
just
up
the commission. It's not a public hearing for that.
Perfect,
yeah.
that's great. That was
My
my only
reading of
question
the
about that.
bylaws. We'll
Okay.
look at it and make sure, but
Okay, so that can just be commission business, not that. Okay,
Right.
cool. Okay, so those are our two new business items. Are there any other items that people need to bring forward? Not seeing any. We have our standard information items in our packet, and so on our June 16th public hearing, we will have a public hearing on the City Lofts project. We will also have a public hearing on the comprehensive plan, and now we'll have a business item of our own with regard to our bylaws. But unless I hear anything else, we stand adjourned. Thank you.